Firstly, the social and cultural significance of marriage must be discussed. For the longest time in many corners of our world, marriage was merely an institution for status and wealth, for the creation of children and to secure a generation to continue a family line. Love was not a consideration for these marriages. Partners were chosen to guarantee successful lineage and wealth for the family. These were the arranged and forced marriages of the past. This is not to say that love did not eventually grow in these many marriages of our ancestors, but it is to say that it was not a major focus. The difference of power between the men and women of these marriages was horrific and often resulted in abuse. Men carried the power in these marriages, making the family's sole income and making every major decision no matter the wife's protests. Divorce was nearly impossible, and the wife was expected to respect her husband's wishes. Marital rape was not only common then, but it remains legal to this day in a multitude of countries. Religion and culture generally disallowed and greatly discouraged divorce, despite abuse and infidelity. It was generally seen as a greater crime to break a family unit than for an individual to be broken through years of abuse. Religion teaches those in these situations to be forgiving and patient with one another. Abuse was rampant and seen as the devil's play in the lives of God-fearing individuals. We often take for granted the freedom that our forefathers gave to us, breaking apart centuries of tradition. It is incredible how quickly our society's stance on love and marriage has liberalized, virtually overnight when compared with the long-spanning timeline of our culture. In this past cultures, stories such as Romeo and Juliet were so incredible, not merely for the fact that the lovers in these stories married those who were against their family's interest, but especially that these people had gone and found love themselves. To find a mate without the help of a matchmaker was seen as naive. These marriages that the lovers had gone and eloped behind their families' backs and married out of passion were very taboo, and were often referred to as love marriages. It is very curious to some viewers to learn that many people today believe that love marriages are still naive. In fact, it is the opinion of this author as well, a truly strong marriage is built not only on love, but a multitude of logical factors, each of which I will go over in this essay to show to the viewer that while love is the most important aspect in relationship, it is not enough to justify marriage. Despite the now observed fact that marriage is at an all-time low and divorce is at an all-time high, marriages are now much more fulfilling than they were before. With women's expanded freedoms, marriage has become much more than a guaranteed survival. It has become a choice. Women now are not only able to, but are expected to work alongside men in the workforce. They must earn their own wage and are expected to be educated. Feminism has lifted women to such a degree that in fact they are seeking higher education at a greater rate than men. With this newfound ability to choose, women are marrying at a much lower rate than before, and birth rates are falling dramatically as education grows for the populace. Birth control has greatly reduced the birth rate among marriage as well, as many married couples carefully plan when their children are born. Currently, the United States has a divorce rate of approximately 50%. We see this greater divorce rate for what it truly is, a greater number of people being able to divorce. It is not a degrading of morals. Ever since 1970, when no-fault divorce became legal in the United States, the divorce rate has exploded. What may seem to our elders as a tragedy of people refusing to commit is truly a blessing in disguise. It is better for these unhappy couples to separate than to be forced by either law or social stigma to remain together. Divorces are often extremely painful for at least one party, but they are often for the best for the couple. Divorce is especially a troubling topic when it comes to the children of these couples. It is true that children of divorced parents grow up to have more emotional issues than children with married parents. But this is far better than the alternative. When a couple stays in a loveless and toxic marriage, the child is adversely affected and may develop worse issues when compared to the issues developed by children of divorce. The normalization of destructive behavior of the parents stays with the children into adulthood, often continuing the generational trauma. Children of divorce face a fork in the road. They either follow in the footsteps of their parents and partake in the same cycle of anger and resentment in a marriage, or they reflect on the faults of the marriage of their parents and make true attempts to be a better spouse and overcome these issues. Divorce must be easy to achieve legally for a healthy society, as forcing unhappy people to stay together will only lead to further issues for themselves and their offspring. When a couple first starts seeing each other, there is the normal and expected honeymoon phase. During this time, the excitement of learning all there is to know about each other is so great, as well as the feeling of being understood by another on a deeper level. This phase lasts anywhere from 3 months to a year depending on the couple, and it is extremely dangerous. The heart is wide open and the mind is closed to logic. People will pursue those who have a multitude of red flags in their personality and lifestyle in search of this intoxicating feeling of being loved and validated. Those with low self-esteem and confidence are especially susceptible during this phase due to feelings of inadequacy and feeling that they do not deserve much to begin with. It is completely normal to be infatuated with someone when you first start dating. It's even healthy. What is foolish and unhealthy is to let this infatuation cloud your judgment. Allowing disrespect and not setting boundaries at this pivotal time will only lead to emotional pain and instability later on in the relationship. It is important to not become attached too quickly and lose one's independence so soon. With time, the two partners will wholesomely combine into one and will become each other's half. However, if done improperly and hastily, it will lead only to unhealthy dependence, a destructive and detrimental addiction of one on the other. Often in these dependent relationships, there is a power imbalance and a manipulation with the use of love bombing by one partner. Narcissists are infamous for the use of this tactic, quickly attaching someone to their side only to turn on them and reveal their true self. The constant switching of loving and uncaring behavior is addicting to the receiving partner, and it makes it very difficult to leave. In a truly healthy relationship, the honeymoon phase is superseded by a continuous and growing love. The love the couple feels in the relationship ought to grow as the two grow together. It becomes a love of comfort and of contentment, the feeling of love that comes when one has a partner that they can rely on and trust. Many are unable to fully appreciate this love, seeking the thrills of the ups and downs, a sign of emotional immaturity. The truth is, not everyone ought to marry, let alone date. You cannot love another until you love and accept yourself. Until you are mature enough to accept another's love, you ought to distance yourself from others and meditate on what you want and what you need. For previous generations, unmarried life was disparaged and unattainable for many, so there was a multitude of marriages founded on a need for marriage rather than a true desire, which led to many unfulfilling marriages. We are truly blessed at this time to live in a society which not only looks favorably on independence, but consistently discourages marriage, citing the extremely large and serious commitment it is. It is true, marriage is an impressive dedication that only the most seasoned and intelligent couples ought to make. To choose one person for our short lives to trust is a major decision, and this verdict should not be made without proper planning and discussion. This decision especially best not be made during the great mix of emotions that occur in the thrilling honeymoon phase. Romance should not end after the night of the wedding. It is important for both partners to continue putting their best for each other. Going on dates, spending time together, and giving thoughtful gifts will help keep the romance alive. Many husbands and wives complain that after the commitment of marriage, it feels as if a switch turned off in their spouse. That finally, with the putting on of the rings, there is no need to chase each other anymore, and that seeing each other so often reduced the spark of their love. It is difficult for many to keep up with this charm that is expected by their partner, but it is vital. St. Paul teaches that the husband must love his wife and for the wife to respect and submit to her husband. There is wisdom in his words, but love and respect must go both ways. The husband should respect and see his wife as above him and recognize the power in her words. And the wife as well best not only respect her husband, but love and care for him with the gentleness only a woman can have. But still, St. Paul is correct in his assessment of the seriousness of these two feelings. A man's ego is as deeply tied to him as a woman's heart is to her. Any offense against these two will certainly create issues in a marriage, so husband and wives ought to be careful in how they speak and treat each other, as their words and actions can either soothe or scar. Dating is for the express reason of determining compatibility for marriage. However, this is not the necessary belief for many. Many choose to date indefinitely as they see no reason to make their love legally bound. The common truth is that if the man is interested in marriage, he will make it obvious. If a man does not seriously discuss the potential of marriage in 2 years of dating, he most likely will never bring it up. This is especially worrying for the women in these non-committed relationships, as women are more restricted than men in terms of remaining time for raising children. Women's fertility is tied to their so-called biological clock, as their rate of fertility and ability to have healthy children decreases with age. Men's fertility does as well decrease with age, but to a much lesser degree. This time of dating for the couple is to observe each other to see if they can truly trust each other for marriage. It is normal for people to grow and change with time. However, there is a staple outlook on life that hardly changes. Individuals seeking to marry must carefully scrutinize their partners for any potential issues that could arise and cause conflict for the relationship. It is important to be willing to end the relationship quickly if they cannot see a future, as someone wasting their partner's time with a fruitless relationship is especially cruel. Attraction is not a small part of a marriage. It is crucial. Beauty is not skin deep, but it is an important facet of desirability. And besides just physical looks, emotional and mental attraction are important as well. Our hygiene, the way we converse with others, and our mannerisms are all aspects of our charm. If we are to enter into a marriage to be tied to one partner, should we not be attracted to them? In our less judgmental and accepting culture, we've been taught that looks don't matter, and that it is shallow to be concerned with the looks of one's partner. This is obviously ridiculous. It is not shallow to want to be attracted to our partner. It is just common sense. It is better to find someone we truly desire and not someone that we settle for. For most couples, jealousy is immensely stressful. For those in marriages, an affair is often grounds for divorce, and rightfully so. Infidelity is more than an unchecked act of lust, it is an act of betrayal. What is important to note is that the definition of infidelity is different for everyone. For some, infidelity is merely spending more time with someone other than their spouse, and for others, flirtation with others is not so serious. Boundaries and definitions of infidelity should be discussed between a couple so that they know what is inappropriate. If one has a serious insecurity that their partner may cheat, and especially if that partner has a previous history of infidelity, it is most likely that the relationship will not end well. Couples must be able to fully put their trust into each other, and any failure in this aspect of the relationship is calamitous. Addiction is difficult to deal with, and it is especially stressful for the partners of these addicts. To see those we love struggle is frustrating, as it is impossible to force the addict to stop, as change can only come from within. Often, those struggling with addiction become complacent with their situation, and unless their status quo is threatened, it is unlikely to change. For the lovers of these addicts, it is often only possible to force change by threatening to leave. It is very difficult to make this threat, especially when marriage and kids are on the line. Addiction is grueling, and when it is an issue, therapy is often necessary. The only advice is to avoid addicts before marriage, as loving an addict is crippling. Privacy for a couple is noteworthy. Consistent gossiping of the personal differences and issues of the couple will only serve to weaken the relationship. Including others in the relationship will only weaken the bond of the couple and make them reliant on others in times of distress. Once a private issue of the couple is shared, it cannot be made private again. Oftentimes, gossip is only spread further from there. Confident people do not feel the need to be validated by others when they are questioned. They are steadfast in their stance. If there is a disagreement between the couple, they should be the ones to deal with it through proper discussion and understanding conversation. Once someone else is involved, it becomes less about resolution and more about influence. The true strength of a couple is in their ability to get through these difficult times together without external validation. It's a common saying and it's completely true. When you marry someone, you marry their family as well. Most children take a significant amount of personality and baggage from their parents, whether willingly or not. Oftentimes, issues with family can be debilitating for a marriage, as blood is thicker than water. Family differences and views on marriage and children can divulge into every issue of marriage, causing divides between spouses. It is important for partners in marriage to get along with their in-laws, as unless family is fully cut off, they will be a part of their lives forever. Some partners love each other to such a degree that they overlook this tremendous aspect of married life, but it best not be ignored. It is best for them to keep a good relationship with their spouse's family, and they will often be rewarded and loved. It is a bigger issue than most give credit. For some people, religion is non-negotiable, especially when it comes to the rearing of children. If this issue cannot be rectified and agreed upon before marriage, the relationship ought to end, as it can easily lead to divorce. There is no nuance to this point. Its importance cannot be overstated. The values of the couple must be aligned nearly fully. The viewpoint on life and what is right and wrong can cause monumental fights. Differences of opinions on topics is healthy and normal and allows for discussion, but differing values can be exhausting for the couple. There is a distinction between a discussion and an argument, and often arguments are the result of a value that one partner has that differs from the other. In these fights, what is so frustrating to the instigator is the feeling of being misunderstood by their spouse, and they want to resolve the conflict. A differing political view is often not much of an issue for a couple, such as the opinion of how the budget best be spent efficiently by a government. What is an issue is when these differing values come into the picture of the political debate. For example, the opinion on abortion is often a non-negotiable point for many women. It is not just an opinion for them, but a right that is deeply personal for them. If a couple agrees on political values, it can only be better for their marriage. Lovers should be careful and learn of their partner's views before marriage, as something unimportant today can be an essential point of dissension in the future. One of the greatest topics of marriage is the financial implication. With the commitment and unification of marriage, there comes a combined end goal as well for the couple to work together financially to secure their lifestyles together. In these last few decades, because women now work as well, it has become custom for many couples to split financials. This is often done to prevent disagreements that can cause issues in marriage. A great number of men subscribe to this way of finances out of fear of the repercussions of a divorce. In general, men work more hours and make higher wages than their female counterparts, due to a great multitude of social factors that I will not divulge into. The important aspect of this distinction is that the men in these marriages who are the primary breadwinners often become attached to their wealth, and this money only serves to separate the husband from the wife. In a true partnership and marriage, finances should not be split, as it is against the principle of marriage. In marriage, the two become one, and their finances should be focused together. That is not to say that all marriages must follow this belief, as every person is unique in their beliefs and outlook on life. What works for some will not work for others. In fact, combined finances for some marriages would be disastrous. Regardless of what is recommended, it is much more important that the couple agree fully on what is to come before marriages. Couples should be careful with their decision on this point, as finances are one of the greatest contributors to divorce. Couples should never go to bed upset with each other. They must talk about and resolve each problem with maturity and be forgiving. They should have gentleness and love in their hearts, and not lash out. What is said out of anger cannot be taken back. Conflict should be avoided as best as it can, but anger should not be bottled up. An unchecked temper will only lead to pain. A conflict-free marriage is impossible, but the way we conduct ourselves in this time is very indicative of who we are as people. The couple must agree on what they want for their kids before marriage. If one partner wants no children and their partner wants 3 kids, what will result? If one wants to push their kids to their limit in terms of education and extracurriculars, and the other wants to be more laid back and allow the children to choose on their own, what will result? If one wants their kids to go to church regularly and pray every night, and the other parent disagrees fundamentally on religion, what will result? Disagreements on how kids should be raised can lead to divorce easily, especially as this relates to the differing values of the couple. Children must be discussed extensively before marriage, and future parents must be sure their values on this topic align well. One of the most sickening facts of domestic abuse to comprehend is that it increases greatly with pregnancy. It can potentially be theorized that it is a result of men unready to be fathers and taking their anguish out onto their wives or girlfriends. Regardless, abuse must usually be the end of a relationship. Rarely do abusive partners ever change. Those in love repeatedly delude themselves that their abusive partners will change with time, but it is almost never the case. Not every relationship should end immediately with the first sign of mistreatment, but it is usually the wiser decision. The sunk cost fallacy deceives many, and it's difficult to be logical with matters of the heart. It is substantial to be strong-willed at this time, and for someone to put their foot down at the first experience of abuse is incredibly resilient. Love is not some feeble feeling that sways with marriage. Arguments should not reduce the love felt in the heart. Love should be steadfast and strong, and people must be with someone whose heart they never question. If there is a doubt about the love a couple feels for each other, then they are a poor match. Marriage is built on love, and it is the most essential feeling. Love should grow continuously. If one does not love the other fully, why should they play with the other's heart? There is nothing more important than love in a marriage. Never, ever compromise on love.